All right there, guys. It's me again. Guess what? We're gonna have a look at the polls. You could probably tell that from the title of the old video here, whichever direction display it's on your various devices. First of all, before we get started, though, I do want to say there's a few of you who have messaged or got in touch recently, just offering general well wishes and the like, which is very kind of you. I appreciate that. So I haven't been paying awfully close attention to politics in the past few weeks. Heard something about an attempted coup attempt in South Korea that got botched basically in the space of one night. Oh, those crazy South Koreans. But I have looked recently at the opinion polls. I sort of was listening to a few political podcasts in the last day or two, and it made me go, oh, yeah, the opinion polls. Let's have a little look at that. So, spoilers, I have already seen what I'm about to show you, but I saw enough that I thought, okay, there's a few little dots I can connect there. There's a few little trends I can identify. Maybe it's worth doing a quick video to sort of share with you guys about that. So let me see. Here we are. It's our welcome, by the way, to part 67 of Swiss Reads Wikipedia, one of the longest running shows we've got here on the channel. Frank says, "Good evening, Swiss. Great to see you streaming again. Nice to see you, Frank. Like to revisit the poll of polls every few months. I imagine it was a month or two that we last did the poll of polls, so we've had a few in since there. Here's our beautiful graph on display here. Whoa, hang on, that's zoomed in a bit more than I was expecting. What if I? Does that make it any better? Is that a slightly nicer display for the folks at home? As we can see, since the time of the general election, we've had a nice slide from Labour down from the mid-high 30s to sub 30% in some cases. The Tories have seen their fortunes improve somewhat, a pretty steady gain throughout. Reform gains up to a point and then a slight tapering off at the moment, but I'd say holding steady more or less on the little that they have gained since the election. And the Greens and the Lib Dems are there as well. Not a great deal of change for them. Maybe you could say a little bump for the Lib Dems. So one thing that I noticed when I was looking at this is I noticed that we were starting to get a smattering of polls where the Tories were in the lead. Now, by no means are there enough of them to say, okay, this is the new trend, the Tories are in the lead. Although I did think to myself, given how the last election went versus what the polling was saying, if there's a fair case to be made that maybe one overestimates Labour support and underestimates Tory support, if you apply that to what you're seeing in the polls, maybe they're about neck and neck at the moment. But anyway, that's an aside. We're going to look at what we've got in front of us, basically. So Kemi Badenoch took over as the Tory party leader. Prior to that, in the time between the general election and her taking over, there was only one poll which had them tied and one poll which had the Tories in front. Everything else was pretty Labour dominated. But as we could already tell at that point, it was starting to slide a little bit. That gap was beginning to close between Labour and the Tories. Now, since Kemi Badenoch took over as leader of the Labour Party, my goodness me, since she took over as leader of the Reform Party, goodness me, Conservative Party, I was confusing my metaphors there. I was about to say that I was doing Reform's work for them by saying that Kemi Badenoch was in charge of the Labour Party. Anyway, let me try again. Since Kemi Badenoch took over as leader of the Conservative Party, there we are. We have had a smattering of polls that have had the Tories out in front. Now, I don't necessarily want to say, oh, she took over as Tory leader and then the public looked at her and went, oh, yeah, we're a lot warmer towards the Tories because of Kemi Badenoch all of a sudden. I don't know how much that factors into it. I'd say it probably factors in a little, but maybe doesn't factor in a lot. I think that it's possibly coincidence more than anything. I don't know for sure. Obviously, this could be the continued response to the Labour budget or just various policies of the Labour Party. If the main party goes down, the opposition parties go up. It could well be that since you've seen the support for reform leveling ever so slightly, maybe some of that's boosted the Tories a little bit. So there's a few different things that you can read into it there. But regardless, this is a little benchmark of about a month ago. Kemi Badenoch takes over as leader of the Tories. There have been slightly more polls with the Tories out in front than there were before. But of course, we've still got Labour leading on the whole. Of the polls that have the Tories out in front, a number of them are from More in Common. This 3% lead here, More in Common. This 3% lead here, More in Common. This 2% lead here, More in Common. If we go back pre Badnock becoming the leader. One of those was BMG Research. Another one here was More in Common, and I think what did we have out of this lot? Find Out Now as well. So at least half or more of these polls showing Tory leads or ties are from More in Common. Does that mean that More in Common are a biased collection of pollsters that love the Tories? Not necessarily, no. All pollsters will have slightly different methodologies and weightings to the way that they collect the data, and they try to say, is this representative of the country? I'm going to sprinkle in a little bit more weighting for this type of demographic. I'm going to shave off the people who say they're less likely to vote, but maybe different pollsters have different cutoffs. So it's very much to be expected that, you know, certain polls will show much more favorably for some parties, others will show more favorably for others. In the case of this, we're seeing More in Common seems to be the pollster that's most favorable towards the Tories at the moment. But if we take the likes of Opinion, we have two Opinion polls here. The most recent one has Labour with a 4-point lead. One from a little under a month ago has them on a 6-point lead. You can see the opposite is the case for them. The Opinion are probably the strongest for Labour. And then the mix of everyone else literally seems to have them Labour within a 1 or 2 point lead. So that's just kind of my observations of what I've seen here. Can I craft a narrative out of what we've got so far? Labour have lost support since they took power. The Tories have recovered slightly, and Reform UK seem to have benefited from it as well. However, crucially, nothing has happened at this point that says to me, the Tories are a dead set for power at the next election. Reform are a dead set for power at the next election. Labour will definitely win the next election. Not least because we are so many years out from the next election. It's really not that useful to try and project that far into the future off of a few polls. But if we were seeing really sort of substantial, clearly defined, the total collapse of one party, the ascendancy of another by 20 points or something, that might be slightly different. This is just sort of, okay, government's got into power. There's basically been no honeymoon period. As a result, it seems that parties, generally speaking, parties of the right are doing better in opposition. Parties of the left kind of holding steady. Now, there are some other sections here that we like to have a little look at. So I want to take a quick look at... we'll have a look at Scotland here. We've got a couple here from autumn 2024. SNP out in front, but not by too much. 7-point lead there from Norstat. 3-point lead over Labour in Survation. Reform nearly tied with the Conservatives in Scotland, though. That's interesting. Wales, Labour out in front. Surprise, surprise. Reform ahead of the Conservatives in Wales. I hear you all saying. And approval. Let's have a look at the old approval. So we're only going to look at the one since Kemi Badnock was elected. Well, I suppose for the sake of reference, we should kind of look back to just post-election to see how things have changed for people who are still in the game. So, for example, Keir Starmer, look at this. Post-election, wow. Look at all of his plus points. Look at all that green. Doing okay for himself. As for now, not so much. Net negative of about 20-30 points. Kemi, where's Kemi on our radar at the moment? Generally negative here. One standout that's got her a positive, but generally negative, but just not quite as negative as Starmer. However, she's sort of got less exposure, if you will, less people stating an opinion. If you add up the positive rating and the negative rating in a lot of these polls when it comes to Kemi Badnock, you don't even necessarily scrape 50%. 20 and 25, 45% had an opinion. 22 and 23, 45% had an opinion. 24 and 38. Okay, that one's slightly more. That's 62% had an opinion. But generally speaking, you're seeing less people actually stating like or dislike for Kemi Badnock at the moment than Starmer, probably because people are more familiar with Starmer. He's the Prime Minister. They've seen more of him, etc. Kemi Badnock's still fairly fresh into the job. But Starmer's approval rating, so we're not looking at the net here because the net is negative, but Starmer's approval ratings in terms of who actually likes the job that he's doing is only slightly better than Kemi Badnock. It is better than Kemi Badnock, but only slightly. But obviously the negatives are so strong that they're pulling him into a really negative position on the leadership approval ratings. I suppose we need to have a little look at Nigel Farage as well. Nigel Farage is a net negative as well, like basically everyone on this list. However, not as much of a net negative as Starmer. I think you could say his net rating is more or less on par with Kemi Badenoch. But again, a slight difference once more. Farage has more people stating an opinion. There's more people stating an opinion on Starmer. There's more people stating an opinion on Farage. When we get to, say, Kemi Badenoch, because she's quite fresh in the role. When you get to Ed Davey, because he's the leader of the Lib Democrats. And for whatever reason, just people don't seem to pay attention to the Liberal Democrats as much. There's not as many people actually filling in those positive or negative columns. So Farage actually is the most popular of this bunch, purely off of the basis of people saying, yes, I like him, yes, I approve of the job that he's doing. If you then factor in all the people saying that they don't like Farage and what he's doing, then he's about as unpopular as the rest of them. But there are more people willing to say, I approve of what Farage is doing than any other individual person in this list, which again I think is noteworthy in itself. And then we come to Ed Davey. I'm not going to do the Greens. I'm sorry, Greens. You know, you have a look at the Greens for yourself there. That's what they get for having two leaders. And there's not that many polls for them. But Ed Davey seems to be the only one who's kind of in a bit of a positive territory, really. Slightly more negative than not. Where were we post-election? What's the journey been like for Ed Davey? Pretty positive, mixed. Okay, Davey's been about on the line most of the way through. Similar amounts of people liking and disliking Ed Davey. I don't mind Ed Davey, he says, thinking, oh no, what quote or bit of that post office scandal is going to get unearthed where you go, Swiss, how dare you say you like Ed Davey when he ignored the happenings. But as a political performer in 2024, there are certainly people who I can dislike stronger than Ed Davey. Right, yeah. So there we are. That's a little look at the leader approvals, and then finally party approval. Okay, party approval. What have we got here? Basically, nobody likes anyone, possibly with the exception of the Greens. I'm not going to delve any further into that. That's a hell of a lot of red. And preferred Prime Minister polling. We've only had one since Kemi Badenoch took over, and Keir Starmer leads her by 5 points in preferred Prime Minister polling. So there we are, guys. That was our little glance at the opinion polls, basically because I myself had actually went to look at them earlier this evening, and I thought, I won't keep this to myself. I'll basically read through the exact same stuff that I just did, but on YouTube, and narrates what I see. Almost like some kind of a content for an audience or something like that. I know it's a foreign concept, isn't it? Lee Ball says seems to be general dissatisfaction and disconnect. I would very much agree with you there. And Barnier ousted as French P. Oh, has he now? Because I'd heard there was going to be a vote or something. Has he actually been ousted? It's been a wild day or so in politics worldwide when you've got this happening in France and South Korea and all the rest of it. Okay, then. Guys, we are at the beginning of December, which means the Milky Awards are around the corner. I know this happens every single year. I sort of, I trail it, then eventually it lands, and then you wait a month to finally get the results. But what I would like from any of you who are minded to think of one, I'm looking for new categories this year, and I'm open to your suggestions. Where we've branched the channel out somewhat. I kind of want to branch out the Milkies as well. We're still going to have our core that we've always had, which is our political Milky Awards. We're obviously going to have side chatters of the year and stream guests of the year and the rest of it. But if we want to, I don't know, broaden it out into culture, whatever manifestations that takes in entertainment. Dare I say it's sports? No, not sport. I know nothing about sport, basically. It would be wasted on me, all of your votes on sport things. But you get the point that I'm saying. If you've thought to yourself, oh, Swiss, you know what? For years, I've always thought it'd be great if we voted on best this of the year or funniest that of the year, but it's just never fit in with the rest of the Milkies. Drop a comment below this video. I will also, when I actually finally send this form out with the nominations, I will put a little consultation box in there for you to suggest some categories as well. So it's not just going to be catch this video and get some input, but I thought I'd mention it to you guys in the YouTube audience as well. Right, that's it. Just a quick one from me. I will see you again at some point. What's my sign off? What do I normally say? Oh yeah, ta-ta, bye for now. There we are.